And we're live. Dr. Coleman, take it away.
Great, great. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity for us to listen to you today. My name is Hardin Coleman, and my colleague Kwok Tran are here, and we are both members of the Boston School Committee. You can find documents for today's sessions posted on the committee's webpage, bostonpublicschools.org/school committee, under the February 10th meeting link. We also post a link to the documents in the chat. The meeting documents have been translated in all the major BPS languages. The committee is pleased to be offering live simultaneous interpretation in Somali, Arabic, and French. After I finish introducing the interpreters, we will activate the interpretation icon, the globe, at the bottom of your screen. Click the icon to select your language preference. In order to access this feature, you must be updated to the latest version of Zoom. Please visit support.zoom.us if you need to do so. Our Somali interpreter is Fatuma Hassan. Will you please give Zoom instructions in Somali, Fatuma?
Hello, galab wanaagsan. Waxaan rabaa inaan idiin sheego magacayga waa Faadumo Xasan. Waxaan u joogaa inaan idiin tarjumo luqadda Soomaaliga qofkii daneynaya in loo tarjumo luqadiisa Soomaali ahaan loogu bedelo markay ku hadlayaan Englishka. Marka waxaan idiin sheegayaa haddii aad rabtaan noocaasi waxaad taabanaysaan shiishada meesheeda hoose ee waxaa ku sawiran qaarad oo aad ka dooranaysid luqadda Soomaaliga. Markaad taabatid waxaa kuu soo baxaya tarjumaadii aad u baahneed. Intaas ayaan idiin sheegaya. Galab wanaagsan. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Arabic interpreter is Ahmed Rubaya. Will you please give Zoom instructions in Arabic?
مرحبا، أنا اسمي أحمد الربيعي وأنا مترجم اللغة العربية لهذا اليوم. بإمكانكم الاستماع إلى الترجمة باللغة العربية بالذهاب إلى أسفل الشاشة. ستشاهدون الكرة الأرضية. اضغط على الكرة الأرضية ستظهر لك اختيارات اللغات. اضغط على اللغة العربية وبالتالي ستتمكن من سماع الترجمة باللغة العربية. شكرا جزيلا. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our French interpreter, I lost the screen. Sorry about that. Our French interpreter is M. Angela Kinglow. Will you please give instructions in French?
Bonsoir, mon nom c'est Angèle Kiniglo, je serai votre interprète française ce soir. Si vous êtes là, vous parlez français, vous allez voir en bas de votre écran, il y aura un globe. Vous cliquez là sur le globe et ça va vous donner les langues et vous choisirez français. Quand vous choisirez français, vous allez écouter l'interprétation directement en français. Merci et à bientôt. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and energy, all three of you. Thank you. We really appreciate this as a committee. We will now activate the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen. I'd like to remind everyone to speak at a slower pace to assist our interpreters. We're here today because our duty as a school committee is to represent the vision and values of our community. Today's community engagement session is one of the many ways we go about doing that. What we aren't here to do is address current issues such as school reopening, policing, and other matters. If you want to discuss these issues in the context of our 5-year goals and guardrails, this is the conversation for that. If you want to discuss these issues in context of getting a resolution to a current issue, we have other venues for that, including our regular school committee meetings. But to help improve our present, we have to make a plan for the future. So we have, as we go through this meeting, we have some ground rules that we really appreciate if we all follow. You know, in terms of time, we would like people to talk one at a time, but feel free to add ideas into the chat, which will be collected as an FAQ and also we'll have a Google form to collect feedback. While PPS is making great slides, there are always areas in which we can improve. This spring, we engaged in an extensive community outreach effort to develop our current strategic plan. Since the completion of that plan, the school committee has selected 2 sets of measures from the strategic plan that we will monitor closely each month. From the strategic plan, we've selected a series of priorities that represent the community's visions for what students should know and be able to do. We call these our goals. Also from the strategic plan, we selected a set of non-negotiable community values that must be honored while we pursue the goals. We call these guardrails. We do not use these to replace the strategic plan, but to heighten our focus on it, increase transparency, and share accountability for student outcomes. Today, we are excited to share these goals and guardrails with you and to hear your feedback. Goals represent the community's highest needs, highest level of vision for what students should know and be able to do. The school committee selected goals that focus on 1, early literacy, 2, achievement for English learners, 3, achievement for students with disabilities, 4, critical thinking with math, science, and literacy, and 5, career and college readiness. Because the school committee that focuses on everything is a school committee that focuses on nothing, one of the hardest tasks has been to narrow it down to only 5 goal areas. But as we grow student success in these areas, they will have a significant impact on students' abilities to be successful elsewhere. Guardrails represent the community's values and our non-negotiable expectations that must be honored in all the school system's work. The school committee selected guardrails that focus on 1, student voice and family engagement, 2, community partnerships, 3, equity and opportunity gaps, 4, diverse and effective staffing, and 5, social, emotional, and physical supports. When these guardrails are ordered, they help create the conditions for student success system-wide. Once the goals and guardrails are fully adopted, as a school committee, we will redesign everything we do to monitor these priorities and focus our work around them. We will redesign what our meetings look like to focus more time on ensuring that the goals are met and the guardrails are honored. We will focus a greater percentage of our time each month on monitoring student growth to ensure we are moving in the right direction. We will evaluate the budget on its alignment with the goals and guardrails. We will evaluate the superintendent based on a consequence of goals and adherence to guardrails. The community's priority vision, our goal, and the community's prioritize our goals, and the community's prioritized values, our guardrails, will be the center of everything we do. With this information in mind, we will begin with our first question. Please remember that our intention is to create a space to hear from as many people as possible today. For this reason, we ask people to keep their responses and comments to under 2 minutes and to make space for other voices. We have divided these questions into 3 parts and we'll spend 20 minutes each on them. If you have a response that you want to make, please raise your hand so we can include you as a participant. Mr. Tron, could you ask the first question, please?
Yes, sir, I will. Could we have the, oh, good, okay. So I was hoping to see this screen right here. To all of you, which of the, you have now seen and heard from Dr. Coleman about the 5 goals, and you have, I believe, reviewed it to some extent. And the first question we have for you is, which of the 5 goals is most important to you? And how can Boston Public School best partner with families and communities to accomplish it? Of the 5 goal area, 1, early literacy, 2, achievement for English learner, 3, achievement for students with disabilities, 4, critical thinking with math, science, and literacy, and 5, career and college readiness. Which one most resonates for you and why? How can Boston Public School do a better job of partnering with families and communities to accomplish this goal? Now I'm opening to all of you. Who will be the first to share?
So I know it takes a little bit of time. So do people have any clarifying questions they would ask before they pick and choose which question which goal they want?
See, Roxy Harvey has her hand up.
Great. Roxy?
Thank you. So the first part of the question, which one resonates the most? I would answer it in a dual way. That I think the early literacy resonates and achievement for English learners because they seem a bit clearer as far as how they would be measured. But one of the most important ones to me is the achievements of students with disabilities, but it seems a bit unclear to me, and that's why I was giving space for anyone else to speak first, because when I hear about achievement for students with disability, and then I look at it talking about demonstrating growth on English student growth percentiles, that language is vague to me. So I guess my first part of my question would be, what English student growth percentile is that referring to? How is that measured? Are we talking about the English language? So it's really an English learner student with disabilities goal versus an overall all students with disability goal. And the second part where it talks about increasing full inclusion or partial inclusion settings without numbers there. But the concern then just becomes, even though that could potentially be a measure of access to general education curriculum and inclusive opportunities, I don't necessarily see how that just a numbers game of placing students in inclusion or not putting them, because I think of how it ends up at the school-based level, right? On a school-based level, it becomes setting. Oh, well, let's make sure we recommend this inclusion setting versus if what the child really needs is make potentially a sub-separate. And then if that goal becomes something that's watered down so that people are just placing students and there are not measures in place to support students transitioning from sub-separates, whether it's social, emotional, a learning, reading challenge, or behavioral or autism. If the supports aren't there in inclusion, it can't be successful, but the goal would be faulty because the numbers would make it look successful, but that our students would not have progress. So I am concerned that the achievement for students with disabilities is not a very clear goal or measurable goal that encompasses all the variety of students with disabilities that we have in this district. So that goal to me seems like it needs to be flushed out. So I would start there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see Charlie Kim has his hand up.
Hello, I think I unmuted.
Yes. Good evening.
Can Good evening. Hi. I do agree with Roxy Harvey about the achievement for students with disabilities. I think it needs to be fleshed out more in the sense which possibly could be subcategory goals by just meeting numbers to achieve inclusion versus how inclusion is actually delivered in order to achieve specific goals of, with the students' abilities to achieve the other goals that are set forth, rather than, again, just trying to get a specific number of students that are categorized under an inclusion setting. I think one of the questions that I have for clarification is number 5, not that I'm focusing on college readiness in career, but kind of wondering, can you give some clarification as to why career and college readiness were placed into one specific goal when, and maybe I'm thinking or interpreting this incorrectly, to me, they would potentially be 2 different strands from as you move from early learner, then getting to middle school and then high school, when you really start to determine and decide where your path is. I didn't know if there was any more clarification on number 5.
Great. Kwok, do you mind if I take that? Just a quick response, just quick. And Charlie, before you go, so I have 2 questions for you, Charlie, and I think, and by implications, Roxy. Is it fair to say that you agree with a goal being achievement for students with disabilities, but you want to make sure that we measure that accurately and appropriately?
Yes.
Great,
yes,
great.
that you actually clarified and defined it very well.
Yeah, and we agree with you that getting good and useful measurements that we all agree we're measuring what the right things is one of our goals as we move forward. So let me speak about career and college readiness, because I think it's very important. And then because we have such a diverse set of students, the process of understanding what your talents and your skills are and where you're going is a central part of our work to facilitate school engagement across the board. And we want to recognize that certainly for some students, the next step for them will be go on to college, but for others, it will be going on to other parts of the world that engage their talents and interests. And by keeping them together, we don't privilege one over the other, and allows us to evaluate our work by how we serve all our students, not just one group that may be going into more of a vocational track, or another group, which historically I think we've done, it's going into a pre-college track. And I think some of us believe that part of our low graduation rates or our low engagement rates is because too many of our students aren't fully engaged in developing their talents as we focus on either college or career. So that's why we're encouraging to have them together. Are we ready to go on to question number 2 then, if we don't have any other?
I would suggest that, yes.
Great, great, thank you. So I get to facilitate this section. So which of the 5 guardrails areas is most important to you, and how BPS can best partner with families and communities to honor it? Of the 5 guardrails, 1, student voice and family engagement, 2, community partnerships, 3, equity and opportunity gaps, 4, diverse and effective staffing, and 5, social, emotional, and physical supports. Which one resonates most with you and why? And how can BPS do a better job of partnering with families and communities to honor this guardrail? Who would like to share? Okay. So feel free to put your answers into the chat if that, and then we'll be able to record that and bring that forward.
From Roxy, I believe that she was asking for us to repeat the question again. Dr. Coleman, would you?
Great. Thank you. So the question is, of the 5 guardrails, student voice and family engagement, community partnerships, 3, equity and opportunity gaps, 4, diverse and effective staffing, and 5, social, emotional, and physical supports, which one which one most resonates for you and why? And how can BPS do a better job of partnering with families and communities to honor this guardrail? Roxy, I see that your hand's up.
Thank you. The one that resonates the most for me is the combination of the social, emotional, and physical supports, because I think it's very important to address the literacy and all those other goals, utilizing a multi-tiered support system. Because we have a lot of students in our district who, whether they're on IEPs or not, that sometimes social, emotional, or, you know, issues arise because of the challenges they're dealing with that haven't been addressed, whether it's that you're in 8th grade reading on a 1st grade reading level and no one's ever really giving you the services you need. So when you have a multi-tiered system that's addressing the various needs, whether they're social, emotional, and physical well-being, within that, it then leaves an opportunity to capture those variations of, but there may be a learning gap or something that has been bypassed or hasn't been caught early. So a stabilized child can learn better, and be a successful student. So that's why that one captures the most for me. But within that one, I think in order to accomplish that, you need that diverse and effective staffing. So for me, it'd be almost that combination, because once you have people that look like you, speak some of the languages you speak, and are highly qualified to teach you and have the skill sets, they value your culture and treat you with respect, and your social emotional is addressing your needs are addressing a multi-tiered system, then there's the opportunity where family voice will be honored. Because, for example, right now, a lot of times at our CCS meetings or IEP meetings, family voices are not currently honored. So when it's a more diverse and effective staff and tiered systems in place to support families and students, that gives an opportunity for genuine family voice at these important events, such as team meetings, where we know our students well and can speak to how to make them successful. So those last 2 points are the most salient for me.
Yeah. And then I hear you say they interact with each other. They go together. Okay. Absolutely. Are there other, other individuals who want to share? I don't see any hands up. Well, great. Well, okay. Oh, Charlie, great. Thank you.
Hi, I think, well, community partnerships, I think that just because seeing what happened during the pandemic, when some of the planning was to call for partnering with the community for safe spaces, And then also seeing where some community centers supported specific schools within certain neighborhoods, et cetera. I think if BPS is able to take that model of community support into every neighborhood so that there are opportunities for all students and families, I think there would be an incredible way for students not only to see what opportunities there are during school, but then also if they're looking into careers or into the future, because we do see, and I see that with specific schools, they do have more community engagement from partners. Mm-hmm. And the stories that I hear from other communities where there isn't that much corporate participation or community engagement coming from a city that has so many opportunities and so many successful nonprofit and for-profit organizations. I think, and I don't know if BPS does have a dedicated office or an individual that does solely focus on engagement and community partnerships, but if that does grow and actually successfully goes through as a non-negotiable guardrail, I think the equity and opportunity gaps will decrease, the opportunities will increase and then you're going to see a lot more diversity and a lot more opportunities for those social, emotional, physical supports, et cetera, that those other guardrails. So hopefully that mm-hmm. makes sense.
That does. Well, thank you, Charlie. You've articulated our plan of action very well. And we agree with you. If this works, it should have those outcomes. Well, great. I don't see other hands. So Kwok, why don't we go to, oh no, Roxy has her hand up again. Great. Roxy?
I just wanted to add that similar to what Charlie said, I actually, as I look at the guardrails, because to me, the equity and opportunity gap for many, many, many years, our district has talked about trying to close it and obviously improve the situation. And with these guardrails combined, it kind of, I see it as setting up that platform because I think that's a very important component. But in order to be able to use that research-based and data-driven at the district, school, and classroom levels so that these island of schools that end up not being a district, but you get the quality you get depends on where you end up getting assigned, which is inequity in itself. And your opportunities are then based on where you're at. But when you combine all these things with the effective and diverse staffing and those social and multi-tiered supports, then that in itself helps in those community partners that support the families, the schools, and are able to do things more creatively and value and parent voice. When you combine them all, it actually leads back to that gap of those opportunities where the populations who have not traditionally been listened to or heard are family voices. And a lot of those children are in that group that the gap is so wide for, it then helps close it. So it's interesting to talk about which one's the most salient or which one stands out the most, because there's so much overlap and need for all at once.
Great, thank you very much. It's very helpful and that makes a lot of sense to us. So Mr. Tron, do you want to go on to the next question? I see a question is being asked.
Yes, Dr. Coleman. The third question, and in fact, it is the last question we have for all of you, is given what you have shared, what is the one thing that you would be open to doing to support our students? And how would you like to be involved in the success of Boston Public School and our students? Part of that question would be, what is the one thing you are willing to commit to, that would support the success of our students in Boston Public School? Who will be the first to share? Ms. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Tran. I think a lot of families already do this, but the one thing I would say that I'm willing to commit to support success of our students is making sure that, you know, I think at least from a family perspective, it's like doing everything and committing to work collaboratively, you know, working to support our district in the city we live in the towns to make sure our students have access to what they need. So that includes coming, you know, sometimes using our time to come into these meetings and voicing concerns and reading the communications that come out. Because one of the things we're still really working on is ensuring that families can get communications, but what is really going on? Who are the family partners? What is done for our struggling readers? What is really, what goals are really held to a high standard for students with disabilities? A lot of times we don't get this information, but I think families are willing to commit to making it a successful district and make students successful, but they need information to do that. So I think for me personally, I commit 100% to partnering with the district. And that means telling you when I think something's inappropriate and also supporting when something seems like it could be successful. So the commitment.
Wow, I lost you there.
So Roxy, you went on, you muted, right? Why don't you work on, we'll come back to you, Roxy. So Charlie, you have your hand up?
Yes. So I guess me personally, our commitment is that we're keeping our children within BPS, even through what we've seen as the challenges, but the volunteer work that I placed in, and Roxy that's placed in by leading the Special Education Parent Advisory Council and also engaging a lot with school committee and other task force. I think that is something that we will continue and I will continue to commit to. I think it would be, if it's as long as it remains and continues to be, and we're seeing a lot, a two-way communication street where we're holding, you bring out goals and we hold you accountable and you accept the accountability and continue with community engagement. I think that's where I, along with other parent advocates and volunteers, would continue to, commit to staying within BPS and seeing the change and seeing our children actually thrive. I think that would be my one thing that I would continue to commit, as long as school committee and the leadership within BPS actually do take action in listening to what the parents and the feedback the parents give.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Ms. Harvey, I think she has problem with her computer. Oh, okay.
But she wrote in the chat, so great.
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time to share today. By April, we plan to use this feedback to update the school committee's work plan that will be used to monitor progress over the next 5 years. The entire goals and guardrail monitoring process will take place during public meetings of the school committee. Here is what you can expect next in the process. We will continue listening and will then adopt a work plan for the school committee this spring. We'll also post a summary of this community input on our website so you can see the feedback that you provided and how we use that feedback in our decision making. If you have more to add, please complete the feedback form that's posted on our website, bostonpublicschools.org/school committee. Your input is greatly appreciated. I want to say on behalf of, this is incredibly important work. We appreciate the time that you've spent with us tonight, and also the other times that you spend helping us better understand the needs of the children in our city and the ways we can serve them. And on behalf of Superintendent Casilius, the school committee, and the entire BPS family, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.